Tony White's gone. You got to get that through your head right now. Syracuse's defense might never be the same because Tony White, the man that made it oh so good, is no longer with the program. He's off to bigger and cornier things over in the Midwest. We'll talk about all that and more on Locked On Syracuse. It starts right now.
Are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Matt Bonaparte, Owen Valentine with you on your Friday episode of Locked On Syracuse. Thanks for making it the first listen of your morning every single day. We very much appreciate you. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast. And today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline, more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. Let's get right into the biggest news of the day before we give any sort of Georgetown prediction. It is that Tony White, Syracuse's defensive coordinator, is gone. He took a job at Nebraska. There was talks of Tony White maybe leaving to take the ASU head coaching gig or another head coaching gig. You'd think if he was leaving, it would be for a head coaching gig. But no, he will be the defensive coordinator of the Nebraska Cornhuskers next season under Matt Rule, their new head coach. Now, Owen, as we all understand, there are connections between Matt Rule, the new head coach of the Cornhuskers, and Tony White. How about you tell us about him?
Yeah, so Rule is not really a stranger to the 3-3-5. It's something that he used at Baylor for a brief stint, and then they crossed paths a little bit in the really early 2000s because Tony White played linebacker over at UCLA, where Rule was he was the D-line coach. And so this is a scheme that Rule has become familiar with. And obviously Tony White, one of a handful of coaches now that are bringing forth the 3-3-5 defense. And it's obviously something that stuck out to Rule. And it seems like, in my opinion, the 3-3-5 is sort of a program rebuilding defense. It's a defense that shifts things up and can throw enough different things at you and changes to allow a defense to have success even when it's not, studded with 4- and 5-star guys all over the place. And I think that's what stands out to a lot of people. And when you think about it, right, you think of what Tony White did at Syracuse. Syracuse was like 110, 120 in terms of national defense before Tony White got here, and then was number 19, I believe, last year. And this season was just about 30. And that's a similar situation for Nebraska at this point. They're about 100 in terms of defensive ratings. And I assume, right, if you're Ruled, you're hoping you're experiencing similar success in a 2 or 3 year span that White was able to do at Syracuse. Take a defense from about 100 in the country to a top 25, top 10-ish, top 30, top 20 sort of defense. And it's something that the 3-3-5 has proven, and is something that is of great interest. I understand why Matt Rule wants him there. It is a slap to Syracuse, though, in the process, because this is one that I think hurts. And especially when you see that Tony White's not taking a head coaching job, he is taking a defensive coordinator job.
Lateral move.
That is not really all too much of a step up than Syracuse.
No, it's a step down, if anything. Nebraska has been atrocious in recent years. I get that he wants to be with Matt Rule and whatnot, and that definitely is a factor in why he went over there. But a lateral move in terms of his position. And if you remember back after the atrocious dumpster fire that was the 2021-10 season, he was the only coordinator or personnel of the staff that Babers didn't fire. Sterling Gilbert was gone. Everybody else was gone. But Tony White was the only guy who got to stick around because he was so good and because he runs a really darn good defense. So losing him is definitely going to be tough. The players aren't happy about it. We've already seen a couple of tweets. One here from Caleb Okechukwu just saying sheesh. And then another one from Deuce Chestnut, just a bunch of face palms. The guys aren't happy about this one. And you wonder, will this lead anybody to transfer? Are any of these defenders so heavily involved with what Tony White is doing that they want to go follow him? I doubt it. But I don't know. I mean, it's something to think about.
Yeah, I don't know who might directly follow him, but this is, an opportunity where if you are a defensive player on Syracuse, where, if you weren't sold on this program and you weren't sold on this team, but you
Which
liked
Tony White
Tony
clearly
White,
wasn't.
yeah, I mean, you're now considering transferring when that was not really a thought, I'm sure, a week or two ago before this was brought up and before conversations like this were happening. So this is something that I definitely understand as a defensive player at Syracuse. You might be, open to wanting to transfer now, and that thought is now of greater interest to you. Makes sense. I get it, right? You're looking for the best defense possible to allow you to shine, to allow you to stand out. Because at this point, right, you're trying to get to the next level. You're trying to be an NFL defensive player. I will say one thing, and this is something that, I picked up from Max Chadwick when we've had him on and other conversations from Max. The 3-3-5 is not really a defense that allows every position to thrive in terms of how you would play at the NFL level. And when you're winning, that becomes okay. But I mean, right now, you've got to show yourself as a defensive player. If you are, especially in the secondary, because of that rover spot, because that is not traditionally what you're seeing in pro defenses, and being able to jump at that level, do you want to continue on this path? So it's already an interesting spot in terms of NFL, snaps and being able to develop film for NFL programs and teams. But at this point, too, I mean, what's next, right? Who do you have that can come in and do what Tony White did at the same level, right? You think of even last year, 2021, when the team struggled, what's kept them in football games? What kept them alive was the defense. Same
The
thing this
Clemson
year.
game. Think about the Clemson game. The
Yeah.
only reason they had a chance was because the defense was so good.
This defense has kept them in game after game after game in White's brief stint at Syracuse, and is something that you're going to look back on and wonder, depending on what happens next. And I don't know who the answer is. I don't know who a DC is that wants to jump to Syracuse right now. That's all for the next couple of weeks and seeing what happens. But this is big. It's important because I do think dominoes will fall, not necessarily following him. Some might. That could be something on the table. But I do think that he is not the only piece that leaves as a result of this decision.
Sure, absolutely. We'll continue this conversation right after a short break. This one brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from football to basketball to soccer and esports. It's all at BetOnline.net. If you love sports podcasts, they got those too. Fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. Tony White gone. Players aren't happy about it. Defense likely to regress a little bit. I wonder what the recruiting angle is on this as well, because I'm sure that Tony White's prowess and recent history and shown success of sending guys to the NFL as well was definitely used in recruiting conversations. Are there going to be guys who are committed to Syracuse second guessing that decision? Are there going to be guys who are thinking about committing to Syracuse deciding against it because that defensive mind is no longer there? It's definitely a big hit, and one that seems amicable. I don't think, I mean, something, unless we don't know something, which is usually the case, it seems like everything, it's fine. Doesn't look like anything's been ugly on the exit here, but I can't assume Dino Babers is happy about it, because the same thing is, what does it say for his image? And that a guy like Tony White, who's really good at his job, chose another coach over him to do the exact same job. I think that there's really a conversation to be had there, because while Rule was a really great college coach, went to fail in the NFL, came back, and is probably going to be really good again, you've got something at Syracuse. You have your second winning season ever under this coach, a really, really talented group of guys in this defense, a defense you built, and you chose against it. That, to me, speaks to Dino.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about the recruiting impacts, and right now, I mean, Syracuse only has 3 defensive recruits to begin with in the class of 23, which says enough. You're in a bad spot recruiting defensively right now with White gone, with 3 defensive commits in the books right now. And I don't know, defensively who wants to come here right now with White gone and this whole situation. And I will say this. I don't think anyone who listens to this podcast regularly will be shocked for me to say that I don't think Dino Babers is a good football coach. Love him as a person, think he's a great guy, very likable. He's not a good football coach in many facets of the game. He has been saved by Tony White. Dino Babers is still the head coach because of Tony White and because his contract was too lucrative, or whatever that word is, lucrative for Syracuse to buy him out. That is why Dino is still the coach here, and that is a reality. And without Tony White, this Dino program is not going to be in a good spot. And I do think that will be exposed this season, and it is unfortunate. But because of the talent that you're losing to the NFL, to graduating seniors, to transfers on the defensive side of the ball, I think Dino Babers is exposed this coming season unless something drastic happens. And I don't want to overreact at this point because it happened today. We're recording this on Thursday. It happened today, and there is a lot of season left, or a lot of off season left before this becomes reality and we start to see the true impacts of this on the field. But I do think this is a big deal in terms of Dino Babers' career, in terms of his ability to win football games next season, and in terms of what the legacy for Dino Babers is moving forward. Because right now he has 2 winning seasons in however many years, right? 7 years, 2 winning seasons. And that's not what you want. That's not what you need. And there have been bad losses along the way and not good finishes. So this is something that is a big deal. And I do think you are going to, if you're Syracuse, circle this. And this is a moment that you're going to think back on, because this is going to have a long-term effect on the trajectory of this program. I truly believe so, because I don't know, as I said, if you're in the transfer portal right now, I don't know the pitch Syracuse has for you, outside of the fact that they have brought, NFL talent under coordinators that are no longer there. I don't know if you're a recruit right now in the class of 23 that was considering Syracuse defensively. I don't know the conversation. I don't know what pitch gets you there, because it's a tough one. This is going to be a big deal. And I get it, right? We all think that Rule can take this Nebraska program and really improve it because he has the capabilities. And obviously he's got, the allure for other coaches to make, as you said, a linear or maybe negative transition in terms of current state of program. But there is enough promise that Rule brings for a guy like Tony White to leave a position where, in theory, right, Syracuse is paying its coordinators. And that's why they were able to get talented coordinators. And that was a big deal. But this is now the reality of this is going to pay dividends. And this is going to be something that we look back on, because I do think this is going to play a huge deal on what happens to Syracuse football in the next 3 years. It seemed like we were starting to hit a little bit of an upslope, but I do think this is going to hit hard. And the immediate reaction and the immediate thought is this is going to bloom large, and it is going to really drag down Dino Babers and what his, legacy is when this contract expires in 2 years.
And I wonder if Syracuse goes after another guy who wants to run the 3-3-5 because the players are so used to it at this point, or if they totally shift and they try to find something new. Because at the end of the day, they're going to do whatever they can on defense to keep it that good and keep guys going to the NFL, because it's really only recently that Syracuse has kind of had this wave of really, really talented defensive backs that are all headed to the NFL. It started with Andre Cisco, Trill Williams, Afatu Melifonwu, now Garrett Williams, Deuce Chestnut, all of them NFL bound, probably Jihad Carter and Jason Simmons too. There's just so much talent there. And I think that they're going to do whatever they possibly can to keep that going. So I'm really interested to see what direction they end up going in. But for now, Owen, there's definitely a lot of merit to what you just said in saying if they don't do something that is really beneficial, you could take a huge step back last year, and that's for a program that finally got its break and went 6-0 and got to their bowl game after not doing so in 4 years and not doing so for plenty of years before that. So Syracuse football might be in a tough spot after Tony White is exiting, but we'll shift gears to Syracuse basketball
Can I
now,
get
taking
one
on
more?
Georgetown. Sure, go ahead.
I want one more football thought in here
Sure.
because I saw a tweet today at 11 from The Athletic, and Bruce Feldman was quoted saying that with Jeff Brom leaving Purdue to go to Louisville, one of his 3 potential candidates that he has listed is none other than Dino Babers,
I saw that, yeah. I don't think it
which
happens.
I hope to God it happens because
I
that
don't
is
think
the
so.
way this program is saved. Right now, Dino without Tony White is bad. Dino at Purdue, off our hands. You know who you reach out to?
Doug Marrone.
No, former O-line coach, Ed Orgeron.
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 Gorge. I like that.
Yeah. All right. That's my ideal next 6 weeks.
All right. Well, we'll see if it happens. Back in the Klein era, we had discussions about whether or not Coach O would be a good fit.
It's my ideal,
I like your callback
optimistic
there.
look. Okay, but this is real and this is important, and Dino will get exposed.
He's already gotten exposed. All of 2020 was exposing Dino.
And
anyway,
2021 would have exposed Dino if it wasn't for the fact that Tony White ran a top 20 defense.
Yeah. Well, let's move on. Time for basketball.
Let's go basketball.
Georgetown did beat Siena, which kind of bound to happen, but they only beat them by like 7 points because Georgetown, as somebody in our comment section, I want to give credit. I believe it was Michael Antonio. So is ruled in the Georgia case they are guilty of sucking.
Wow. Can I say this? Did you see the Georgetown gave out free tickets to that basketball game to anybody with a DC residence?
All right. Great job, Hoyas.
If you showed a driver's license that said you are from the DC area, you got to attend that basketball game for free. That's how bad the program is doing right now.
Georgetown projected to lose every single game this season from here on out. Every single one. They're not projected to win a single game after that Siena win. So strap in. If Syracuse loses this game, it is really not good. But hey, we talked about it a little bit yesterday. Why don't we cut to the chase, Owen? Let's give predictions. I'm going to find a line. You filibuster for just a second.
All right. I look at this, and I'll tell you what. I'm excited for this basketball game. I will be. I'm going to throw my hand up in the air. I will say this. I will not watch this game live. I'm going to brag for a second. I will be graduating, getting my master's degree on Saturday. So I will not be, yeah, you know what? Shout out to me. I will not be able to watch the game live. I will watch it, afterwards. But I do think that this is an exciting game. Anytime Georgetown comes to the Dome, it means something to fans still. Not as much. We said this yesterday, but it does still mean something. And so, having a decent environment, it'll be fun. Getting some people out there. Saturday afternoon game. Hopefully make some noise, chirp some Hoyas, and whatever time of day it is, we know Georgetown still sucks.
Oh, and I'm going to need you to find that line. I don't know why I try to do it when you're that guy. So I'm going to filibuster while you do it now. I can't find it.
Okay. So KenPom has Syracuse winning by 10. I will start with that.
Okay.
Which KenPom is usually within a point of what the spread ends up being because, math, and that's how you make your spreads.
True. This is betting 101 with Mr. Valentine.
Is it? So this is NCAA basketball. Can I get...
I will hopefully be in the Dome for the game tomorrow. I'm expecting... There haven't really been good crowds from what it looks like on TV. I'm hoping, even though Georgetown is awful this year, I'm hoping people show up. just because, there's a rivalry game there and whatnot. I don't know if you could still call it that since it's inter-conference, but there's still something there, I think. And I mean, I think every Syracuse fan wants to beat Georgetown more than anybody else on the list, maybe Duke. So what do you got on?
You know what, Bones? We're probably not going to get a line. College basketball
right.
lines, usually 24 hours to game or till tip. Thursday recording, probably won't get a line until tomorrow.
All right,
so
well, we're
let's
going to
go
take
with
Ken
10.
Palm. Yeah, -10. I'm going to take it. I'm going to take Syracuse.
I like that.
To win by 10 points at least.
I agree. I think they can build off of that game against Oakland, as bad as Oakland is. I think there were so many positives in that game, so many big moments. The offense looked so much better that I think they can carry that momentum into a double-digit victory, without a doubt. I think 10, if that ends up being the line, if you live outside of New York State, might sprinkle on the orange, because I think this is a really bad Georgetown basketball team. And it's a Syracuse team that is trending in the right direction. And I think they can continue that against a team that is bad, right? This is not us, bashing Georgetown because it's fun to bash Georgetown as a Syracuse fan. This is genuinely Georgetown is a bad basketball team. And the Ewing era at Georgetown is not good. It is absolutely hideous. And as you said, projected to lose every single game the rest of the season. Syracuse's outlook was bad for a little bit. Still isn't great, but they're not projected to lose every game the rest of the year, which you can hold your head high about. And that is the case for Georgetown. I think Syracuse wins this. I might even go bold. I'll say this is a 20-point Syracuse basketball win on Saturday.
Wow.
That is how bad I think
like
Georgetown is, and how good I think Syracuse is playing right now, relatively, in the last few games.
All right. Well, that's all we got on this episode of Locked On Syracuse. Thanks for making it your first listen. For your next, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast, the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. Available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast. I'm Matt Bonaparte. He's Owen Valentine. We'll see you Monday.